back, nerds. This is part 2 of Nate and I's discussion of Chapter 8 of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. We entered the Aerith Sea from Machna Forest, acquainted ourselves with the floating islands, and saw Prison Island, and strolled around Alchemath, saw some scheming going on among the High Entia royalty here, and all this is in the good graces of the Emperor. And then after a gazillion side quests and conversational tangents, we're getting back to the plot. Let's get started. So we kill the Chromar, we free the engineers, and they fix the teleporter. We pat ourselves on the back and return to the capital. Back at the capital, we cuts to a scene between the Emperor and Alvis. They're talking about Telethias. Alvis says that the Telethia that Melia defeated in Machna Forest gained as much power as it did due to high ether levels. And in other words, our ether protection is weakening.
Our ether protection is weakening.
And so it begins, the resurrection of the Bionis.
And I have to ask myself, so less ether equals more protected, which might be adjacent to that concept earlier from where you spoke with a citizen who says that they no longer worship Bionis. So Bionis secretes ether, that's its blood or something. And if, according to Alvis, our ether protection is weakening, because there's more ether, they feel more threatened. I'm missing some data points to draw a conclusion on that, but something's there.
Yeah, they're talking about resurrection of Bionis, and earlier Ryan stated hey, doesn't that mean we all die and all of civilization on this thing collapses as he moves his leg or scratches an itch on his back and murders 30,000 people, right? Maybe the resurrection isn't that great. And so the worshipping of the Bionis and using ether and stimulating all of these living veins of this being, they might be of the opinion hey, this is bad. Maybe we should just chill and live a quiet, non-disturbing existence on this thing so that we don't all die.
Alvis cannot say definitively that Shulk is the harbinger of doom, but the investiture ceremony must happen as soon as possible. The investiture ceremony is the event in which Melia is rendered queen. However, she must endure the trial of the tomb first. Umea encourages her to take this test, again, wondering if this is a trap. Melia accepts the trial of the tomb. She will lead the High Entia despite her mixed heritage. Umea thinks to herself,
"You are not fit to be Empress. Not now, not ever."
And Alvis hears her thoughts and goes,
I wasn't sure if I was imagining that or if you would have noticed that too, that it seems like Alvis actually heard the inner thought. The same way that Telethia have mind-reading powers, Alvis has his own Telethia. Maybe there's some synchronization there. He's developed some of those skills for himself.
Oh my god, he's half Telethia.
He's got some Telethia blood. I don't know. Either that or it's part of the, Shulk wields a Monado, can see shit, and Alvis has the ability to pick that thing up and see some shit himself. He is a seer, but that seemed less like a vision and more like he heard that happen live. Somebody thought something and he heard it.
Right. We're back at our prison room, our relaxation room. We're not prisoners here. Oh, there's more fucking quests now that we're back. So we're here, and there's a big gathering of High Entias outside. We weren't invited, but Melia's out there. The Emperor addresses the crowd. Runic video screens are displaying his face, and he announces his successor. It's Melia, and the party now realize that Melia is a princess. She's standing alongside the Emperor wearing a white porcelain mask. This suddenly makes sense to me because there was at least one High Entia citizen that I've spoken with earlier who says he's really wanted to see what Melia looks like. And it appears to me that when she's out in public, she's concealing her likeness. She's hiding. She's wearing this mask. And so I don't know if it's ceremonial or for some other reason, but she's got this mask on. It looks kind of like the one that Tyria, the assassin agent of Umea, is wearing, but it's more ceremonial and less anonymous murderer.
Yeah, and there's talk of mixed heritage. I don't know how much of that information is accessible to the public. It seems like it is. I would imagine there's talk of first consort, second consort. We learned some details about that later, but essentially I would think the public knows about this. So if there were an identifying element of Melia that would maybe discredit her via mixed heritage, and don't know if the mask is hiding any of that. I haven't seen a stark difference between her and other High Entias, so it seems like the mask just serves a religious function alone. Like, I haven't seen it come into play that this thing has an actual purpose within the events to follow.
So Yumea is not present for this public ceremony. She's back in the throne room and she's scheming again. Tyrea is with her. Tyrea says that she will kill the party upon her request. Yumea says something strange. The savage who discovers fire remains a savage.
Say the word and the captive Homs shall be no more.
The savage who discovers fire remains a savage.
I feel like this is analogous to Shulk holding the Monado, and just because he's got the Monado, don't make him a badass, or the Chosen One. I think she should have more appreciation for the first Hom or Hyentia or whatever that creates fire, because, yeah, you're still a savage, but that's progress.
It reminds me of a certain lyric of a song. I can't really quote it outright, but essentially saying, like, you know, the gods watched as the humans discovered fire and laughed. And then they looked again, and the humans were developing nukes, and they cried in fear.
The song Nate is referencing here is The Grand Experiment by Minneapolis hip-hop collective Doom Tree.
So it's kind of that thing of, you know, like, hey, the Homs are stupid and he's playing with fire, how cute, you know, but it's like, this dude is gonna light up this Monado pretty hardcore, so I wouldn't dismiss him just yet.
Definitely. Callian overhears Yumea's scheming, and he's like, wait, what's going on? That's so strange. Look, Callian overhears Yumea saying she has hatred for Melia's contaminated bloodline.
We continue to endure the contamination of our bloodline by perpetuating this wretched tradition of a High Entia first consort and a Hom second consort.
For how long must I suffer these Homs? And we learn that that an emperor has two consorts. The first consort is another Hyentia, and a Homs is the second consort. We haven't run into a Homs consort yet this chapter here, but it begs the question, where is she?
Of the same observation, I almost wonder if there is she has left this mortal plane at this point, because or if it's just like a political consideration. The Emperor gets into a little bit of that later. Like, the consorts don't seem to be romantic partners to the Emperor. They seem to be political considerations.
Maybe he was eaten by a Mechon.
Oh, that would be sad.
That would be sad.
Maybe it's inside a Mechon based on other scenes we've seen.
Possibly. We cut back to the party. Shulk shouts, wait a minute, spontaneously, and Ryan becomes a believer in visions again. No, Shulk doesn't have a vision in that moment, but the exclamation Shulk lets out piques Ryan's interest in visions, and now he believes in them again and is not just gaslighting. We are attacked by 5 masked High Entias that all look like Tyrea. Maybe one of them is Tyrea. Junbin drops this incredible line about room service. They're menacing us, they're threatening us, they're semicircling us, and Denbin goes,
Excuse me, we ordered room service an hour ago.
I'm afraid you've already eaten your last meal.
The chunky bass mini-boss music plays, and we fight them. There are wizard, guard, and scout Entias. I'm literally 12 levels higher than them, and I kick the shit out of them.
Yes, thank you, SideQuestverse. SideQuest Lands, whatever it is, for making us the swole gods of combat.
Right. So they're just a footnote. They're just a bloody stain on my boot. And Alvis and Callian appear afterwards. Alvis identifies these as Inquisitors, and Callian reveals himself as the brother to Melia, half-brother, let's say. Alvis says that he believes they are Inquisitors of the Bionite Order, which, Nate, you spoke of earlier. Assassins devoted to the Imperial family, although shadowy, and we thought they've been gone for millennia.
That's something indicative of this chapter as a whole of, you know, I learned about the Bionite Order kind of being name dropped, just talking to NPCs or whatever, but in the self-same chapter, they're being revealed and kind of expounded upon. So in this game's other places where like a slow burn was allowed, this chapter is kind of tossing you headlong into lots of ideas real fast.
The masked Hyentia are from the Bionite Order, unless they're Melia. They never reveal their true faces. Right. Shulk says that we need to help Melia. She may be in huge trouble. Shulk wants to help Melia. And Kalen says, well, how do you know she's in trouble? And Alvis interjects. He says, Shulk and I have the same gift. Melia is in danger, and we have to find her now. We cut to the tomb of the High Entia, where Melia will be doing this process. The tomb is this fortress-looking structure at one of the far ends of Aerith Sea. You can access it by teleporting from the teleporter just below the capital. Melia is joined by Larithia, and she says, win this mission or die, and we still feel like she's, drumming up some trap for her. And blows her a kiss goodbye. That was kind of strange.
It's in line with the eye shape hypothesis.
Shape hypothesis. So that was a brief cutscene. We're back at the group. Yet another cutscene. Kaylin says that those of the tomb must do it alone, and we really shouldn't interfere. But Dunban engineers this bizarre loophole excuse for us to intervene.
And the loophole is basically, we are Homs. We don't believe any of your stupid bullshit. We just want people to not die. So fuck your tradition. We're going in there. We're saving Melia. If you got a problem with it, well, fuck off.
We get Kaylin's approval, and then we had permission to enter the tomb. And so we do with Alvis. Alvis is a guest in our party now. Before we enter the High Entia tomb, Alvis talks a little bit about himself. This is our first, at least semi-detailed window into Alvis's history. He indulges us and says he comes from a long line of seers dedicated to serving the family. He is a Homs, not a High Entia. However, his ancestry is not easily explained, and his ability to see the future is very complicated. You might say I have my own ritual. However, Shulk has no ritual of his own.
I was going to say, in this conversation, the Monado carries out the will of its master.
Magnified greatly, it has the power to control the very fabric of our world, ether. Control the ether, and your will is made reality.
And that's not clear to me whether it's Shulk or the Bionis. Is Shulk the master?
Sure. Yeah. Well, according to the High Entia legend, I wonder if it's the Chosen One, because there's a lot of questions about the intentions of the Chosen One, and if it's carrying out the intentions of the Master, maybe it's...
For sure. I'm kind of leaning towards Shulk, but I'm taking in like a % consideration that it's also literally Sword of the Bionis. So that's kind of, I'm weighing those two options of like, is Shulk some sort of Chosen One because he has what it takes and he has the spirit of a good person, and so, he's like the Link character where if he touches the Triforce, nothing but good shit's gonna happen, But I'm also weighing against Bionis. He put this sword here to achieve its ends. So definitely a mystery looking forward to unraveling.
We open a huge gate and enter. Cutting back to Melia now, who is already inside. Now that we're in control of Melia, we get a tooltip describing how to solo with her. The tooltip suggests that we fire off the fire elementals after summoning them, rather than keep them to sustain buffs, and CC with sleep. But as mentioned earlier, we are leveled up quite high, and what could have been a fun gauntlet of one-on-one encounters, you just kind of crush rather fast, and this section of the game, it wraps up pretty fast. At least it did for me.
And there weren't a lot of fights either. It kind of begged the question of like, why even make the tutorial? I guess if you were under leveled and you didn't do any grinding, then you might be in a bit of a pickle here. But I just hit buttons and I won.
Yeah,
so
you just hit buttons.
One thing I'll say is, as Melia enters the tomb, she engages like a greeting voice, and she responds to it kind of in a religious, reverent fashion in a way. But the voice to me reads as robotic, like this is a machine talking. And that's kind of obvious, like everything's a machine. So I almost wonder, is like, we talked about this like state the High Entia are in of just coasting along for millennia or whatever it is, whatever the length of time is the dichotomy of treating machinery and programming as this like divine element lost upon High Entia. Like when I'm seeing this, it's like, oh, that's clearly the voice of a computer, and she's talking to it as like some high seraph. That's the sense I got, and it's like that's a little unsettling to me at face value.
After speaking with that voice, she enters through a gray stone door and into the Hall of Spirits, which is a huge shaft covered in stone panels, covered in writing that looks like kanji. Stepping on a rune on the ground creates a golden magical walkway that allows you to cross these gaps. And there are more of those panel robots throughout. That's the predominant enemy types we run into are automatons. They're robots.
I have the words I have written is Rhine is Dumbo cheeks.
As I explained before, Dunban, the defense systems are designed to prevent uninvited...
Well, what does this do?
Don't touch! Huh?
No ideas were bucked up in the making of this chapter. Everything that's about to happen is officially Rhine time.
We get into the first room. There's a panel. Alvis is trying to explain the technology of this place, and Ryan goes, "What does this button do?"
Yes.
The floor drops open, and we all fall to our deaths. Game over. No, we don't have a game over. We don't have a game over.
It has to be interesting, so, you know.
Yeah.
There's always those dungeons in RPGs and Zelda games or whatever where you do all this shit and you finally get to the treasure at the end, and then some other guy shows up and it's like, nah, I'm taking the treasure. Or Zelda shows up and like just walks right in and you're like, wait, how the hell did you get here? So at least this game kind of creates that, a little bit of that dichotomy of like, yes, Melia can just walk straight in, but we kind of have to take a roundabout path. So they do a good job of creating a dungeon without creating the similar question of how did Melia do this on her own?
Yeah, it's a trap for bandits and morons.
And Ryan was happy to play the part.
Ryan, yeah, very, very enthusiastic about it. We cut back to Melia. We're in the ceremony hall now, and that robotic narrator we spoke with says, "You have done well, my descendant. Are you the progenitor of Antigua?" Antigua is the emperor's surname, and, well, I guess Melia's surname too.
It's an ancestor replica. It's a machine, a captured likeness of the ancestor. And I am reminded of the Gazel ministry. How about you, Tyler?
Yeah. I thought this was kind of like the meeting the architect at the end of Matrix 2, where they were dropping some serious meta story stuff on us all at once here.
Our purpose, as decreed by the Bionis, is linked to our genetic sequence. We have spent millennia analyzing sequences to free ourselves from the curse. Only a certain gene set will unlock the mechanism and set us free.
Yeah, this chapter could kind of have been its own game, or like 4 chapters in some ways. Like I said, we're peeling the onion. And we are in chapter 8 of 18, right?
17.
Oh, okay. So 8 of 17. We're gonna be here a while, Tyler. If this keeps,
I think so.
If this keeps going at this pace, holy shit, man!
I was hoping we would wrap this up by then, but that ship sailed quite a while ago, and who knows? Maybe she comes early. The voice says, it spouts these funny statistics. It says 80% Ham's gene integration, estimates of 8 generations. Our purpose is linked to our genetic sequence. We must free ourselves from this curse, and only a certain gene set will set us free. This must play into the consorts, where we're trying to mix Ham's and High Entia genes to create some sort of, I don't know what. But there's a point to all of this gene mixing, and Robot Ancestor knows all about it.
Yeah, the gene mixing, this taps into something I was talking about earlier, but didn't really want to elaborate until we got here. Maybe the Hams have a little bit more intellectual and spiritual freedom than the High Entia. They are less susceptible to that, like, societal fugue state that seems to encapsulate High Entian society. As we've talked about, and they're more heart spirit driven. I don't know, but it seems like the Emperor is enthusiastic about that development within Melia, and this ancestor replica is the same. So this has been something they've been thinking about for a while. I think he says, is the quote, "free ourselves from the curse of the Bionis"? Was that mentioned in that conversation? I have that written down.
I don't have the words of the Bionis. I have the curse.
Yeah, okay. So free ourselves from the curse by integrating with Ham. So that right there tells me something's up, that even hundreds of years ago, this figure that is now digitally recorded wanted this to happen.
So that conversation wraps up. We have 100,000 questions when we only had 10,000 questions before this conversation. And Tyrea shows up, the masked assassin. She survived the ambush that we had earlier. It's funny to me that in this conversation, there are two masked high entias speaking with one another. And Tyrea calls her a filthy half-breed that has no right to the throne.
A filthy Homs half-breed has no right to the throne.
And a showdown is about to happen, but we cut back to the main party. Here we're all, getting up from our fall. We fell into a pit of water. We are all fine, but we give Ryan a serious, we chap his ass. We chap his ass pretty good. And Ricky goes hard under Ryan, and I have to laugh about that because I feel like Ricky knows he is not a great party member. He probably feels like he's the worst party member. But then Ryan has these, Ryan moments, and everybody kind of turns on him. Ricky must be thinking in his head, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't have to be the worst party member. Maybe I can be second worst.
Who puts a great big hole somewhere like that?
As I explained, it's a defense mechanism.
What a mess, Ryan.
Friend not clever touching button.
I'm with these guys, Ryan.
How was I supposed to know that was gonna happen?
And so we have these back and forths between Ryan and Ricky where they're just hard scrabbling at each other, throwing elbows at each other, proverbially, to not be the worst party member. I think it's hilarious.
I think you'll find we had to take the long way because somebody pushed a certain button.
Somebody mean Ryan.
Shut it, hairball.
Yeah, and the way it's delivered, even with some of the other party members and Alvis and whatever, I go back and forth as like, was this supposed to be a comic relief moment for Ryan, or am I supposed to genuinely be moved to it's time for character development, Ryan? You need to change core parts of your being. They play it off a little bit too seriously with some of the characters and then stupidly with Riki. So I just tonally, I don't know how to feel about these scenes, and I kind of wish they'd just move on. It lingers a little bit too long for me.
We get control of the party here and we navigate the High Antia tomb. There are robot enemies to fight, walls to climb, rooms to go through. There's tasty sausages lying around on the ground. It mentions Ricky eating it in the tooltip. So I have to ask myself, how many hearts does Ricky get when you offer it to him in the item gifting menu mechanism? And it's just one. I thought it'd be much more than one. Womp womp.
They set you up hard on that one. Yeah, I found a tasty sausage on a climbing handhold, and I was like, what is this doing here?
I don't expect to find tasty sausage here. I don't know what Melia is dropping around here. I don't know if this is part of a trap Lady Larithia's got for us. She's gonna lure us into a laundry basket with the pencil holding it up on one end, tied to a rope.
Tyler, I'm supposed to be the one luring her with tasty sausage, not the other way around.
That's spicy chorizo.
Yeah, and we've said that this tomb has not been visited for hundreds of years, so this has to be just pure gameplay consideration.
Gross.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's molded sausage.
We come up to a big, giant, glowing ball, Tyler. Ryan says, that is a big ball of something. And after which a giant monster comes out, but it's a monster we recognize. It is a Orluga Rufus, and I don't know what the Rufus modifier to the Orluga means, but hey, it's a boss character, or a mid-boss, right? It's a mid-boss that I completely destroy. I typed this sentence in the middle of the fight in my notes while they just auto-attacked him to death. And no one took any damage. Yeah,
he's an Orluga, but he's got panel technology mechanisms on his back and on his stompers.
And the giant
he releases electrical charges around himself. He has a laser from his back. He's constantly missing. Is my evasion that high? Easy fight.
And the giant ball in the sky persists after his summoning, so this wasn't like a Orluga mass transmutation or anything like that. It seems just like a summoning ball, and it did not impede our progress whatsoever. The room has climbing handholds to traverse around it. I have a note here that Dunban failed climbing school as I traverse the walls using the JPEG handholds that are just pasted onto the side. They have no geometry whatsoever. Dunban repeatedly falls to a 1 HP death and is spawned on the nearest piece of flat geometry before once again jumping suicidally below yet again.
Wow.
Each time Ryan has something to say, Ryan tells him, "Don't give up. I'm right next to you." So yes, Dunban keeps jumping because Ryan encouraged him to not give up.
Ironic and sad.
Yes. It happens again on my next set of handholds, and I realize the cause is actually Ryan, because Dunban is my second party member, Ryan is my third, Dunban is second behind me, but Ryan climbs faster than Dunban and pushes him off in his pursuit to catch up to me. Ryan adds the statement, "Sorry, I've got to focus." Me too, as I find another tasty sausage on one of the handholds. So
yeah, and when Ricky loses a lot of health, he says he gets hungry and he's ready for some sausage. Being near death makes you want to eat a meal. We barrel down a hallway where we can hear Melia speaking with Tyrael, Tyrese, Tyrone, Tyrell. Holy crap, so too is a Telethia. It's here in the tomb. It doesn't look like the same Telethia we fought in Machna Forest, but this is manta ray-like. It's got a large undulating blanket-like body, or like a magic carpet with the head and arm structure pointed out one side of it. It reminds me of a boss I might have seen in Final Fantasy X, but I can't think of a specific one. It's kind of woman-like. It has a Hyentia bird mask, their wings and fins flapping all over it. Highly textured blues and purples are all over its skin. And this is a boss battle between not just Tyria, but also the Telethia, called a Solidium Telethia.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that this was the one in the breeding tank, or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the last chapter.
Yeah, the way it floated was very much like the way this one's floating, wasn't it? I thought so too. So this must be a creation of Lady Larithia's. Maybe that was her voice in that cutscene.
Oh, speaking of voices, Tyria's battle noise, not the worst fucking thing ever. I don't know if you noticed this or had your sound distractingly normal level, but Tyria has the same gain issues that the Mechon Big Boys did, where all of the normal sounds will be happening and then she just screams into the heavens whenever you damage her.
I don't have a note there, but I do remember it in the fight.
Yeah.
I wanted to focus Tyria first, but I can't. The Telethia gets toppled super quickly, and so I don't really care. I pour in the damage. The Telethia charges up a Delta Cannon, which Ryan absorbs for 0 damage. And with the Telethia down, I can focus Tyria. She has a skill called Guilty Bomb that binds, as in rooting you to the floor, which I think is a pretty cool name for a skill, Guilty Bomb. When we defeat Tyria, her mask falls from her face, but she's hiding it with her forearm here, and she escapes because we are distracted by the Telethia, which is self-destructing, and we're in a rather contained room here. There's no time to escape, and it turns out that Alvis defends us from the blast with an enormous shield here. He saved us. Unfortunately, Tyria escapes to scheme another day. We are back at the capital here. Alvis is briefing the Emperor about what's going on. He describes that the Bionic Order is dedicated to protecting Bionis, which was issued by an older emperor, like a former emperor, not an older emperor. And Umea has been arrested.
Melia is completely affirmed by the Emperor and Callian as well. He will become their leader, and the investiture will happen tomorrow. So it seems like our meddling wasn't a factor ultimately, because she had to go to the tomb and do this trial by herself. It's like it was zero sum because we meddled, but also Umea and her servants meddled, so it kind of canceled each other out to where Melia just did the fucking trial.
Right.
So our crew kind of postulates a little bit, why was Melia chosen in the first place and not Callian? But they don't have access to some of our perspective as players, putting together all of these pieces that we learned from the simulated ancient that Melia met and all of those things. So we've kind of got a bigger picture of she's being chosen for this process of a mixed race leader.
Yeah, we're not valuing the pure blood angle, but we don't know why. We have some clues, but we don't know why. Shulk has an opportunity to speak with the Emperor directly and ask the question we came here to ask in the first place. May we have access to Prison Island?
The Emperor says no, right? I was a little bit lost in this conversation because initially it said like he was leading up to a yes, and then we walked away with a no, and I might have missed the point at which the conversation churned. Can you help me with that, Tyler?
Yes, we walked away with an I need to think about it.
Okay.
The conversation begins with the Emperor thanking us for helping Melia. I hear you seek. And then he goes into a legend that explains that Bionis will awaken again and that the Telethia are disturbing the ether. So is disturbing the ether a means to resurrect Bionis? Sure seems like that way. And then he reads from a tablet on the wall. It's kind of like it's been cut out and then put in here, very much like the other one was. And then he explains that they meant to trap the Monado to ensure prosperity for their empire. If Bionis awakens and leverages all of that ether power, all life will perish. However, the Mechon invasion must be stopped. We ask for admission to Prison Island. The Emperor says that on Prison Island, our forefathers sealed something away, but all records about what was sealed are lost. There's no way to know what it is. Our forefathers must have had good reason, and so that is what's giving the Emperor pause for allowing us to enter. We cut away to Melia walking in a field as the Emperor continues speaking, and he asks us to be not her protector, but her friends. And then we're treated to our final scene, which, very much like in previous chapters, is a window into what's going on in Mechonis.
The Telethia are on the move.
Yes.
That fleshy fool will go for the Monado. What of the faces?
Repairs to metal are complete.
And Nemesis?
Nemesis is...
The Homs with the Monado. He has reached Erith Sea?
Yes.
Then there is only one place for them to go, yet he will not dare unleash such power. No matter. Bugs must still be exterminated. It is time to test our new toy. Commence the assault on Bionis.
There's a new voice we're hearing, and he's communicating orders to another voice, a woman's voice. Maybe it's the woman's voice that we heard in the laboratory scene with the soul transfer moment, and it sounds like we're getting ready for battle. He's asking if repairs are complete on Metal Face, and that is our new secret weapon ready to be deployed. And that new secret weapon is probably going to be that thing that had the soul transfer. They gave it a name too. Oh my god, what was it? Was it
Face Nemesis, right?
Face Nemesis. Yes, is Face Nemesis ready for battle? And so we're going to battle. All of these shots in this scene are of what looks like a single new Mechon. It's predominantly green. It looks rather large. Of course, they're all large, but this one looks very large. It has shiny green armor, although there are shiny yellow and red accents around as well. And I feel like we're going to be meeting a new Mechon character sometime soon. Maybe in the next chapter.
Yeah. So I have one last note.
Yes.
For me, in this whole chapter revolves around High Entia learning about their motivations and everything. And I like the Emperor. I think he's a pretty stand-up guy. He has bucked up his ideas, right? And Melia, the half-blood, is kind of cool. But when I look at like pretty much everyone else I met, there's this degree of just like a systematic misunderstanding or just inability for me to connect to their motivations other than just like blatant racism or whatever. I don't tap into anything deeper for them. And it kind of reminds me of, did you ever watch House of Cards, Tyler?
No.
Okay. It's a show on Netflix. I'll just keep it real quick. Started out really strong, maybe top 3 flubbed endings or like degeneration of a show over the course of its lifespan for me, just getting worse and worse. And it's because as they opened up and elaborated on characters, I realized there is nothing deeper to these characters. That singular motivation that they were given at the start, and then once they arrived or received some of their goals, to find out like there is nothing more to these characters than just, this, in the case of the High Entia, this lady's racist. That was something that I felt in this game it was always doing really well. And in this case, going to the High Entia capital was just a lot of characters that were very one-dimensional to me in the aspect of like, you're an emperor and you have a consort and she stands at your side every single day, and then you find out, hey, she sucks. And all right, I am going to send her to jail. It's like, can you put a little bit of like, oh, wow, that betrayal hurt me, or, this, I'm reeling from these events or whatever. Everybody just seems so poised and matter of fact and like kind of opaque to me that it's like, I'm a bit bored with these characters at the end of the day. And it didn't help that this was a chapter where kind of everything felt like this glossy, kind of boring sheen in comparison to the rest of the game to me. I don't know if you relate to any of that, but does that make sense?
There were a lot of cutscenes and a lot of lore to pay attention to make notes on, at least in our regards here. Does it make sense? I don't know. We had a lot of character development. We learned the true nature of Melia. We got to meet the Emperor. We got to learn more about Alvis. We might be exhausted with character introductions because we met another 4 or 5 of them in this chapter here. And so maybe there's some character fatigue in a chapter.
If I do pull back and just like look at a perspective of like all of these people are here to serve Melia's arc, maybe I can look at it a little bit more beneficially.
Next chapter, I'm expecting we will have a high energy battle. It might take place at Prison Island. I don't think we'll be advancing to new zones, although usually we do. I have this feeling that because this place is an epicenter of Bionis, and because I know that we haven't gone to Prison Island yet, and because I know that there's Mechon assault in the wings, and because I know that there's a ceremony coming for Melia tomorrow, that I feel like we're going to be staying here in the Aerith Sea for at least another chapter.
I feel that too. I want a hovercraft so that I can mow the lawn of the Aerith Sea's map
that would
fog.
be so nice.
Yeah.
Or one of those air defense vehicles.
Yeah, or just drop me a fucking map item that reveals
yeah.
the whole thing. I would be completely content in that.
Right. Find the Sheikah Tower. This has been an episode of Hero with 1,000 Potions.
Tell us your favorite High Entia Vixen lady and what you would like them to do to you.
Or, how the podcast is going.
That's fine too.
And join us next time. If you're playing the game along with us, crush Chapter 9 before crushing that episode. We're looking forward to you joining us again.
Well, I'm Nate, and I was born into a world of strife against the odds.
Everyone do good!
We were talking about musical opinions, and this is a longer story, but I'm just going to say that I gave a quick little opinion about Muse's first 3 albums, as I experienced them. And then I qualified that opinion with like, hey, listen, I'm not much of a Muse guy, so take this opinion with a grain of salt. And Tyler, you replied to me, and knowing your personality, I know you didn't mean it this way, but in my head, I read it as you saying to me, well, Nate, I am a Muse guy. Like in a menacing manner that my opinions were about to be eviscerated by a true Muse aficionado. But you were very gracious and accepting of my opinions. And thus Tyler granted me access to a more modern playlist of their music that I actually really enjoyed. And I found that in my younger years, I was not able to appreciate some of their later entries. But I sat and thought about it for a bit, and I realized there might be another element that kind of colored my opinion, and it's this. Their style changed a little bit at the end of Black Holes to their next release, but probably more impactful for me was that my ex-wife listened to them a lot, and Invincible was our actual fucking wedding dance. So yeah,
wow.
that's probably why I took a hard break from them, and that my actual musical stylings might not have been the key influence of why I stopped listening. So I give Tyler credit for getting me back in the zone a little bit with this playlist, and I used it to knock out these side quests with a little bit more spice in my life.
That's great, dude. Love to hear it.
Yeah.
Try to keep the anthems to absolute minimum.
Yeah, there were a couple of them in there. I'll just say that
It had to be worthwhile.
Yeah, Supremacy is kind of the exact thing I meant when I felt like they transitioned to like an operatic anthem-based rock. Like, if you notice how the music quiets and lingers during the verse, and just like almost like the band is just waiting for him to deliver the verse in a way, you can kind of imagine he's on stage in costume with a sweeping authoritarian set piece dimly lit in the background. Does that make sense?
It does. Supremacy in particular, I think that was pitched to United Artists as an option for a James Bond theme song that was later denied and then reappropriated for a proper Muse album.
That makes so much sense. You know, and when I listen to United States of, there's lots of Queen moments in there.
Oh, yeah.
It was definitely a transition away from me. I felt like Knights of Sidonia had so much exposure for them that it kind of said, hey, this really works for you guys. Let's try more of this. I don't know if that just as an artistic direction, they were inspired by it and felt like they wanted to do more of their own volition, or if it hit a commercial note. I don't want to peg anyone into that hole as artists, because, you know, we all got to make our paper, right? But it is what it is. So it was a little bit of a stylistic shock for me. I'm more of a plug-in baby kind of guy.
First time I heard Bliss, it blew my freaking mind.
Yeah. And so
Bliss is an all-time jam.
Yeah, there's a lot of gems, and there's some new stuff in there that you linked that the first time I was like, yeah, all right, cool. And then like on 5th or 6th plays, I was like, wait, this one really kind of fucking rocks, you know? So there's some good things. I'll say this too. Undisclosed Desires is the exact kind of thing that like I would have been turned away by in my 20s, transitioning to the kind of that thing. But as an adult who's had like longer, deeper relationships that require mature pursuits and goals than when I was 20, the song definitely listens and reads different lyrically. It kind of makes me think of like Don Quixote and the transformative nature of having a transcendent perspective on other people instead of just being bogged down by bullshit. So choosing to see good in others, I like that about that song. And when I think we talked about it a little bit, you had mentioned something about like that song's play in Europe.
I think I read it in an interview that Undisclosed Desires is like their most popular song in Germany, or at least they like scream louder for it at shows than any other song. And it's a good song, but I would cry out for 20 other songs harder than that one.
For sure. You kind of mentioned a connection to maybe like Depeche Mode, right? And it was funny that you texted that to me, because I immediately was like, there's no connection sound wise of these two songs, but I myself was thinking of Suffer Well by Depeche Mode. And so I was like, wait, Tyler, like, we should have just been friends in college. We are so fucking in sync in certain areas that it's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's a shame we weren't.
Lastly, I'll say that Reapers, out of the new playlist you gave me, is the exact kind of thing that drew me to the band in the first place. There's a lot of flavors within that single track. So
yeah, it is very Origin.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely.
why I included it.
And I say, you know, if anything I've said in this, listeners, offends you or my opinions sound bad, just know that my taste in music completely sucks. I just sent Tyler a clip today of absolute brain rot music, and he was like, what the fuck was that? So I've been listening to a song called Koku by a band called Petite Brabançon, which is apparently a breed of dog. So go listen to that and then dismiss all of my opinions outright.
Hello. No, I'm not going to start like that. It's terrible. It's been a little while. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get composed. Hello and welcome to Hero with 1,000 Potions.
Maybe it's been too long. We've just completely lost our mojo.
She also points out the Imperial City. Alchemath? Is that right? Did I spell that right?
Yeah, it's Alchemath.
Alchemath? Could I have Archemath written down here too? Alchemath. Okay.
It's Alka.
The accordion of your penis.
Something like that. My game penis is fully erect in this moment. That is a thing, you know, sometimes you just love a game so much, you have to admit your game penis is ready to go.
Is there a word for that? A game.
We just invented the term.
A joystick stiffy?
A joystiffy.
Stickfy?
Sorry, am I hitting you hard and fast with deep?
No, No, you're not. And we'll keep this. Keep this.
Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy. Do you remember that? Was that his name?
Jack who?
Yeah, cut that if I got the name wrong. That's an SNL thing.
Okay.
Way back in the day when I was little.
What is this? What's going on? Total extermination. Excuse me. Total extension, because that's the note I wrote.
Uh-oh.
Total utter extension.
Well, Shulk is gonna extend that sword. We know it's gonna happen.
Well, we've got to do that conversation thing at the very, very end.
I've got mine.
Oh, you have yours? Shit. Is yours a starter or an ender?
I'm completely freeform on this. I'm just using quotes.
Can you give me one? I don't have one ready.
Mine was, born into a world of strife against the odds.
What else says that?
Dunbin in combat.
Okay.